These perfume bottles cost anywhere from $200 each. Have you ever asked yourself why 100 milliliters of liquid can cost that much? Why can't I just mix some oils myself, make my own scent, and how much could I actually earn from it? Most people often get ideas about starting their own business, their own clothing brand, an app, and so on, and almost all of them drop the idea right then and there. Not because the idea is bad, but because it's unclear what the first step should be and what actually awaits them. So let's break it all down, step by step, from the simplest method to the most advanced, how to make money in the world of fragrance, where you can start, and how much it's going to cost. First, let's clear up the biggest misconception. When someone says, "I made my own perfume," everyone immediately pictures a lab where they're mixing oils and selecting notes like a chemist. In reality, almost nobody starts that way. It's slow, expensive, and requires experience that the average person just doesn't have. So we're going to go from the simplest and cheapest to the most complex. The first path, and the simplest, sell decants. A decant is a small amount of authentic branded perfume poured into a tiny spray bottle so that a person can try the scent before buying a full bottle. The logic is simple. A full bottle of good perfume costs $100 or more, and very few people want to drop that kind of money on something they've never smelled before. But paying a few dollars for a small sample, that's an easy decision for most people. Now let's go step by step on exactly what you do. First, you pick a few scents that people are interested in. The best sellers are expensive, niche, or hard to find fragrances that aren't available in regular stores. The harder it is for someone to smell a scent in person, the more willing they are to buy a sample. Second, you buy the original full bottles, and only from trusted sellers. That means either official stores or major perfume discounters. In the US, for example, that's Fragrance X, FragranceNet, Jama Shop, or duty-free shops. What you should never do: buy supposedly original bottles secondhand at suspiciously low prices. That's exactly how most people end up with fakes, but more on that later. Third, you buy empty spray bottles, also called atomizers. Get small sizes, 2, 5, or 10 milliliters. In bulk, they cost pennies. The best places to look are AliExpress, Amazon, or eBay, using search terms like perfume atomizer, travel spray bottle, or refillable atomizer. Buy extra, because some will be defective and some will go to testing. Fourth, you decant the perfume. And here's the main challenge for beginners. On most branded bottles, the sprayer doesn't come off. It's firmly attached to the neck, and you can't just unscrew it. So there are 3 working methods. The first method, the simplest and requiring no tools, decant by spraying into spray. You remove the top part of the atomizer, hold its open neck right up against the original bottle's spray nozzle, and spray directly inside. It's slow, some of the fragrance escapes into the air, but it works, and you don't need to buy anything. The second method, a bit more precise, a special decanting pump. This is a tiny pump that fits right onto the original bottle's sprayer and transfers the liquid into the atomizer without spraying and with almost no loss. It costs a few dollars and is sold in the same places as atomizers. The third method works if you have a bottle where the sprayer can be removed, or if it doesn't have a sprayer at all. Then it's simpler. You transfer it directly with a pipette or through a small funnel. Fifth, you label each bottle. The name of the fragrance, the volume, and the word decant or sample, so the buyer knows exactly what they're getting. Let it sit, wipe the outside of the bottle, and it's ready for sale. Now let's talk money. Let's use a simple example. Say a 100 milliliter bottle costs you $100. That's $1 per milliliter. You split it into 5 milliliter samples and sell each one for, say, $8 to $15. From one bottle, you end up with more than what you paid for it, and you still have some left over. A common pricing benchmark is to set the decant at 50 to 200% above what the liquid itself cost you. But there's an important point that people forget. The selling price isn't profit yet. From it, you have to subtract atomizers, labels, packaging, shipping, bottles that broke in transit, and product that never sold at all. After all that, the actual profit ends up noticeably smaller than it seems at the start. Where do you sell all this? 3 main channels work. First, your own social media, Instagram, TikTok, a Telegram channel. You show the scent, describe what it's like, show the samples. Second, your own simple website or store, on Shopify for example, where you drive people from social media. Third, in person, fragrance communities, themed chats, forums, markets, where someone can come and smell it in person. For perfume, being able to smell it before buying is half the battle. Now let's talk about the challenges, so you go into this with your eyes open. First, counterfeits. The fragrance market is flooded with them. If you unknowingly buy fake bottles and resell them, you're selling fakes, even if you didn't mean to. So the rule is, only buy originals from people you trust, and don't fall for deals that are too cheap. Second, you're selling a decant, not the brand itself. You can state which scent is inside. What you cannot do is use the brand's logo or pretend that you are them or that they've authorized you in any way. Third, platforms. Many marketplaces have their own rules about reselling and decanting other people's fragrances. Some restrict it, some ban it entirely. So you need to read the platform's rules before you list the product, not after. That's exactly why many people end up selling mainly through their own website and social media. Fourth, and this one usually catches beginners off guard, shipping. Perfume contains alcohol, which means it's a flammable liquid. For shipping carriers, that's hazardous material, hazmat. In practice, this means several restrictions. Most of the time, you can only ship by ground, not by air. Shipping internationally via regular mail is almost impossible. There are limits on how much you can send in one package, and it needs to be packed in a specific way. The result is that shipping ends up being slower, more expensive, and more complicated than you expect, and it eats into your profit. A similar option, just reselling full bottles. You buy originals cheaply at sales or from discounters and sell them for more. It requires almost no skill, but the profit per bottle is small, competition is high, and the problems with fakes and shipping are exactly the same. It's more of a way to learn the market than a way to get rich. The second path, make your own simple perfume with your own name on the bottle without a factory. This is the cheapest way to actually have your own brand. You're not inventing molecules or notes. You take a ready-made fragrance oil from a supplier, essentially a finished scent compound, mix it with a base, pour it into bottles, and stick your own label on it. Many small brands started exactly this way, literally in their kitchen. First, you get fragrance oil. That's a ready-made aromatic blend sold by fragrance suppliers. Then you get a base. Two options here, either perfumer's alcohol or, if you don't want to deal with the problematic shipping of alcohol, an oil base for roll-on perfumes. Then you mix the oil with the base at a certain concentration. The general principle is, the more oil, the stronger the scent, and the longer it lasts. At an eau de toilette level, there's less oil. At an eau de parfum level, there's more. The exact percentage depends on the specific scent compound and on safety regulations. More on that below. So you always adjust the concentration for each case rather than using one number for everything. After that, the mixture needs to sit. This is called maceration. You put it in a dark place for about 2 weeks so the scent becomes smoother. Then you pour it into stock bottles and apply the label. For testing, 30 to 50 pieces are enough to see if people like the scent or not before you invest more. Supplies can be found using search terms like fragrance oil supplier, perfumer's alcohol, or stock perfume bottles. Common suppliers people start with: for oils, the perfumer's apprentice, Brambleberry, Candle Science; for bottles and boxes, packaging companies like Packamore. The startup cost isn't high. Oil for one bottle costs a couple of dollars. Simple bottles range from under $1 to a few dollars. Sprayers are pennies, and a box, if you make one, costs a couple of dollars. With this path, there are two honest warnings. First, safety and labeling. There's an international fragrance standard called IFRA. It restricts how much of each aromatic substance can safely be applied to skin. Plus, every country has its own cosmetic labeling regulations. What must be written on the label? As soon as you're selling to other people and not just for yourself, that's no longer optional. It's a mandatory requirement. Second, inspired by fragrances, scents styled after well-known brands. You'll encounter a lot of these. The scent itself is legally almost never owned by anyone, so similar smelling perfumes do exist and are legal. But using the name of a famous brand, the shape of its bottle, or its packaging, that's a different story, and that's exactly where people get into real legal trouble. It's a gray area, and the safe path is to do your own thing, your own name and your own design, rather than riding on someone else's. If you do decide to go the inspired by route, get proper legal advice first. The third path, this is where you get a real brand made for you by professionals, not by yourself in a kitchen. Everyone imagines this part, but almost nobody understands it properly, so let's break it down. There are two versions here. The faster and cheaper version is called private label. Essentially, you work with an existing factory. The company already has a lineup of finished scents. You smell them, choose one you like, and they release it with your name on the bottle. The scent isn't uniquely yours, but you skip almost all of the complicated steps. In essence, you're buying a finished product and turning it into a brand. The longer and more expensive version, creating an original scent that belongs only to you. Here, You work with a perfumer, also called a nose, or with a perfume house, a company that develops fragrances. It all starts with a brief. A brief is a description of what you want, the mood, the type of fragrance, who it's for, how strong it should be, plus examples of perfumes you like as reference. You send the brief, the perfumer creates a scent based on it, sends you trial versions, you give feedback, they revise, and this goes through several rounds until you get exactly what you want. That's the normal process, and a few rounds of revisions are included in a reasonable development package. When you're talking to any of these companies, the first thing you ask about is MOQ, minimum order quantity, the smallest batch they're willing to produce. In perfume, that's often anywhere from a few hundred to 1,000 bottles per scent, and for an original scent at a large factory, around 5,000. This minimum is exactly what makes this path expensive, because you're paying for all those bottles before you've sold a single one. How do you reach out to these companies? Search using terms like private label perfume manufacturer, perfume contract filling company, stock perfume bottle supplier, or fragrance development perfumer. Some common names people come across for private label include White Glove Perfumery, Noteology, Light for Life, for bottles and boxes, Packamore. Then you write them an email, and you don't need complicated phrasing. A first message to a manufacturer or private label company might look like this. Hello, my name is... I'm launching a small fragrance brand and looking for a manufacturing or private label partner. Could you please let me know, what is your minimum order quantity per scent, the cost per bottle at that minimum? Do you supply bottles, caps, sprayers, and boxes yourself, or do I source those separately? Do your fragrances comply with IFRA standards? And will you provide safety and labeling documentation? What is your usual turnaround time? And can we do a small trial batch before the full order? Thank you. From their answers, you'll quickly tell whether you can afford to work with them. If you need an original scent, your message to a perfumer or perfume house is slightly different. Hello, my name is... I'd like to develop an original fragrance for a new brand. Could you walk me through your process and costs? How many samples and revisions are included? Will I own the final formula, and how much does that cost? What is the minimum order quantity for production, and roughly how long does the whole process take? Thank you. Notice that the question about formula ownership is right there in the email. That's how important it is. Now here's the smartest move in this entire topic, and many people skip it. Don't launch with full-size bottles right away. Launch with a discovery set. That's a small box containing several of your scents in sample sizes, usually sold for $15 to $30. It's convenient for several reasons. First, making small samples is much cheaper than producing hundreds of full bottles at once. Second, the person gets to try everything without spending much, which is exactly what perfume buyers want. And third, most importantly, you get to see which scent people actually like before you've invested big money. The scent that gets ordered and praised most often is the one you scale up into full 50 or 100 milliliter bottles. You can even credit the cost of the set toward a future full bottle, which gently brings people back to buy. And filling these samples uses the same skill as the very first path we covered. So the smart order is samples first, then full size. Don't bet big money on a guess. However you sell, the money usually comes in a few forms: individual bottles, decants and sample sets, and repeat customers who come back for new scents. Repeat customers are where the real money is, because the hardest part is selling to someone the first time. After that, it gets easier. Now about how people find you. Perfume is huge on social media, so most small sellers grow on Instagram and TikTok, posting about scents, doing reviews, showing samples. Beyond that, people sell through their own website and at local markets where someone can come and smell in person, which matters a lot for fragrance. But making the product is only half the work. People still need to find it and smell it, and that's a whole separate effort. Let's roughly estimate the numbers, keeping in mind that they vary widely. Testing decants or a small batch of your own oil-based perfume can start from a few $100s, mostly bottles, supplies, and a couple of cents. A small private label brand or a proper batch of your own perfume with decent bottles and boxes, that's already $3,000 to $10,000. A full brand with an original scent from a perfumer, with formula rights and factory-run production, $30,000 to $50,000 and up. And in any of these, keep ongoing costs in mind: new bottles, supplies, platform fees, and that inconvenient and expensive hazmat shipping. Now about what usually goes wrong, because a lot of attempts fail. Let's start with the product. If you're reselling or making decants, you can unknowingly run into fakes, which hits your reputation and can lead to legal trouble. And with decants and inspired by fragrances, it's easy to cross the line by using someone else's name or design in ways you're not allowed to. So always keep in mind whose brand and packaging you're getting close to. Next is the practical side, where people stumble just as often. Perfume is a flammable liquid, so usually you can only ship by ground. Air and international shipping are almost impossible, and it requires special packaging. All of this narrows your customer base and cuts into profit. If you go private label or original, you'll hit the MOQ wall. You have to pay for hundreds or thousands of bottles up front before you even know if anyone wants them. Plus, the niche is crowded. There are a lot of decant sellers and small brands on social media, and standing out is hard. And as soon as you start selling to people, safety regulations and labeling laws apply. Ignoring them is a real risk. There's also a less obvious problem that catches people off guard. Many people buy one sample, smell it, and never come back, while some bottles break in transit. So you're constantly looking for new customers and replacing losses just to stay in place. Who should actually do this? It's best for people who genuinely love fragrance and understand what scents appeal to others, because taste is half the advantage here. For those who are patient and willing to do slow, meticulous work, carefully decanting, applying labels, properly packaging hazardous materials. And for people who are comfortable with selling and running social media, because that's exactly how perfume gets sold. Those who start cheap and small, with decants or discovery sets, and learn the market before investing big, usually do the best. And who probably shouldn't bother. If you want easy money without the work, this isn't it. If your plan is to invent a brand level scent overnight and get rich, that's unrealistic. If you're not prepared to be careful about originality, safety, and shipping rules, the risks will catch up with you. And if you like the idea of a perfume brand but don't like the slow, painstaking work, sourcing suppliers, mixing, packaging, selling, it's worth being honest with yourself about that. Because that work is most of the job. Deciding this isn't for you is fine. Realizing it before you've spent money is a good thing, not a failure. And one note specific to perfume, more important than in most other topics. Where you live matters a lot because of shipping. Because of hazmat rules for flammable liquids, sending by air and internationally is difficult. So in the US, Canada, the UK, or Australia, you'll mostly be shipping ground within your own country at first. And the specific rules and carriers vary everywhere. That alone determines who you can sell to. So let's come back to you. You're standing there with this expensive bottle in your hand. Making money from perfume used to sound like one simple action: invent a scent and get rich. In reality, it's not that. To start, you don't need to invent anything. You can decant authentic scents into samples and sell the chance to try them. You can mix ready-made oils into your own simple brand. You can order a factory to produce a scent under your name. Or, later, and much more expensive, you can hire a perfumer, create something truly yours, buy the formula, and launch it through a discovery set before committing to full-size bottles. You choose the level that matches your budget and your patience. You don't violate rules on originality and safety, and you accept that shipping flammable liquid is part of the deal. Maybe you'll never actually launch a perfume business, and that's fine. Most people won't, but now it's no longer a mystery. You understand what your own perfume actually means, where the money comes from, and what can get in the way, and that's the whole point of this video and of this channel.